Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Wario Land. In the last part we finished off Parsley Woods and now we're in the final world of the game, Syrup Castle. Starting with course number 37, all of the last 4 levels in the game are here, as well as the last couple of treasures along the way. Now would I say the hardest levels are in this world? No. It does have some of the longest levels in the game, including the final level. If there's anything I'd say that's actually hard to do here, it's find one of the treasures, because it's not impossible to find, and there is a visual hinting towards it. But I think it's the most god-dang-it location for a treasure in the game on the whole. Course 37 here isn't exactly hard, but they do throw a lot at you, particularly the rolling spike balls from that one level in Parsley Woods. In fact, if you have a choice between using a high road or a low road, like right here in this level, take the low road because more than likely a spike ball awaits you in the high road, in a place you're probably not going to be able to avoid it too easily. Like that. If you had been on the high road, you probably would have gotten hit by that, although I think you can jump over them, it's just that the timing for it's a little tight given how fast you're probably moving forward at that particular point. Speaking of the treasure chest, though, let's look at the bottom of the screen. See how the ground is textured? Well, whenever it reaches a corner, it stops within a tile or so about there. Here's the key. You notice how the ground continues beneath that wall, and the wall has a bit of a weird clarification at the top of it? That's not a wall. The visual signifiers are there, but in the monochrome, it's very hard to tell, and it's very easy to miss that. I think that's the worst way to hide a treasure that they use in the game. Which, the fact that there's only 1 of 15 that's like that, I guess is impressive in its own right for a game that's only 50 levels. So you know what, not for nothing, pretty good average on that. The fact it's the second to last treasure is a little bit souring, but oh well. If there's anything that levels like this really ram home to me, though, if this game needed anything in its original version, it needed maybe, I think, 1 more power-up for Wario. To either diversify levels focused around it, potentially, or just to give you a little more toolkit, but I really can't think of what they could easily give him that wouldn't be just relegated to specific level gimmicks. Like, here's Submarine Wario, you use it in underwater auto-scrollers that just feel kind of bad to control. Or things like that. At least not without just straight up dipping into some of Mario's power-ups, instead of giving Wario his own spins on them, like how the dragon hat's a spin on the fire flower, the ox hat, sort of a spin off of the super mushroom and all that jazz. There's not really many other ways I could do a direct one-to-one with that. Unless maybe they gave him like an early version of the Koopa shell thing from New Super Mario Bros. DS, but even then, eh. So that's one thing I will give Wario Land 2 Beyond, is that while they use a lot of the same power-ups in different levels, for one thing, there's more power-ups to begin with, I guess more states for Wario rather than power-ups is the way I should phrase that. And because the later games are built more around that, especially when it comes to finding their equivalent to the treasures, they generally feel a lot more creative with their level design, which is, I think, the main reason why they probably changed up Wario Land 2 mechanically a lot moving forward, because it gives the series its own identity. And I do like that identity. It's just that I think about that identity sometimes, and then I start getting scared because I remember the "Hurry up!" from Wario Land 4 and the sound cue that accompanied it, and how it haunts my nightmares 20-some-odd years later. Huh. Part of that pain, admittedly, is realizing that that was 20-some-odd years ago. Did you know that the Nintendo DS turns 21 in 2025, so that thing is going to be legally able to drink? The pain, the years, they keep on coming, and oh god, I'm fading to dust. Course 38 is where the final world truly brings in its marathon levels, as we're going up, down, and all around, and using more or less every platforming mechanic in the game in some form, on top of having very cramped spaces for them to throw enemies at you, on top of projectiles to worry about. With that said, this game's good about giving you breaks even in larger levels where there's a couple of rooms where the only enemies are very little threat, like those. Or they'll just do this again and give you one of the only other starmen left. And hey, if you need some extra lives, this is a good time to potentially rack them up, because we are coming up on the end, and while the final boss isn't exactly hard per se, it's still potentially good to have those lives saved up for it in case you're newer to the game or you're a lot more reckless with your movement. There is one thing I can't remember with this level, though, and it's how it treats a hazard in this upcoming set of rooms. There's effectively fire on the bottom of certain portions of it, and I forget if it's instant kill or if it just damages you. I think at least this section of it here is instant kill, because I think that counts as a bottomless pit. But above here, I don't remember, because even though this platforming on the ladders looks tight, Wario's sprite is so big that overlapping on the ladders to grab the next one is very easy. It's not like, say, certain Mega Man games, where the frame window for you to press up and get on the ladder when you're trying to drop onto one next to the one you're on, like in that one stage in Mega Man 2, is kind of tight, and it's very easy to do here. Once we crouch beneath these random blades, we've reached the end of the level. Time to blow some stuff up. Similarly to the draining of the lake or the falling of the lid, as we ascend the Syrup Castle, we do actually blow parts of it up and make it look different each time, and there's something about that I really like. I like how games will sometimes play around with changing up how the level maps look as you go through them like that. Course 39 is the second to last level in the game, and it's also the location of the last treasure in the game, so keep your eyes out. With that said, out of the 3 marathon levels here at the end, I'd say this is probably the easiest overall, because I think it's shorter than the last level, but it also doesn't have, you know, a boss fight attached to it. Hop up here, and we can start our way towards finding at least the key for the treasure chest for this level, in this giant X-shaped room. At the top right of the X is a block containing the key. The door is in the top left, but it's blockaded by a lot of blocks. So we need something that can destroy that many, and since they're airborne, you either need the jet hat for this, or what this room will actually give you that will allow you to open that is the dragon hat. Technically, I guess it's a little more efficient at doing it anyway, but worth noting all the same. Though in the bottom left here, in case you don't like the dragon hat, there is a garlic pot waiting for you. And on that level, there is something I appreciate about this game that not every game gets right. When you need something for a puzzle or in order to get a major item like a treasure chest in a level, the tools to get said thing are always in said level. It's not like, okay, in order to get the treasure chest in this stage, I need the dragon hat. But there's no dragon hats in this level, so you need to go back to this level. They'll always give you what you need somewhere in the design of the level itself. Little sad I need to note that, but there are some games that unfortunately don't do that too well and get annoying because of it. The only problem at that point is if you lose the power-up along the way. Our final treasure is a bracelet, I guess? It's not quite a ring because it doesn't go all the way around, so I guess that's probably like a bracelet or something like that. On that note, actually, something I have yet to mention because at my life count it's very unlikely to happen. If you lose all your lives while playing this game, you randomly lose one of the treasures you've obtained and need to go back and get it again. Which is kind of annoying, but at the same time it requires getting a game over in this game, which I don't think I've ever gotten without trying to see it myself. Except for maybe once very early on when I was getting used to the controls, which was probably before I even had a single treasure to begin with. This next section of the level is probably the most dangerous because we got lava below us on these moving platforms, feeling like a part of Top Man stage action from Mega Man 3. There's only like really one jump here that can be kind of stressful, and I'd say it's this set right here. And even then, as long as you are patient enough for waiting for the platforms to be in the right spot, it's not too bad. Using the high jump also helps a lot. This jump can also be a little finicky. But again, Wario kind of flies whenever he does a high jump, so you don't need to worry about it too much. Wario gets a lot of horizontal airtime with his jumps in this game, even if you're not holding the high jump stuff, though, so you're probably good on that front. And that's the end of that level, which means it's time for more explosions. Yay! And with that, only one level awaits before us, so it's time to go end off the game. Worth noting once again, if you want to get the best ending, you need to have 9,699 coins saved up before going into this level. Or at least enough to get to that total before beating the final boss coming up. On top of having all of the treasures saved up, on top of all 40 levels being cleared. Now, I'm actually looking at the timeline. I've forgotten something. I've called this a marathon level, and I'd say it still is. But this is actually the shortest of the 3 levels here in the main part of the castle, at least. The main reason I think of this as a marathon level is because I include the final boss and the ending total for it, which goes on a bit longer than others for reasons. The level itself isn't inherently that dangerous, although the platforming early on, if you're new to the game, can be a little bit problematic at times, probably, in the case you're not quite used yet, somehow, to controlling Wario left and right over bottomless pits. Take your time and don't try to rush from one platform to the next too much, is the best advice I can give when it comes to that. One thing this level has that's very unique, though, is that it actively has a mini-boss, so you can tell they're doing something interesting with the final level, at least. In here is a knight with a spear and a spiked head. You cannot jump on them to damage them, you need to charge in their back a couple times in order to do so. However, whenever you hit them, they get dizzy for a sec, and then they charge the opposite direction at you. So, hit them from the back and then jump on top of one of the blocks to avoid any kind of problems there. 3, I think, shots and they're down pretty quickly. Mini-boss about as easy as the main bosses up to this point, but still kind of neat. I like the sprite work on it. What I could recommend is fighting that thing normally first and only grabbing one of the blocks if you get hit. Because you might want to save whatever power-up state you have for the final boss at that point. Albeit at that point, most of what you're going to be doing in the final boss anyway is jumping on them, so not a lot different you could do there. But just in case you get hit on the way from there to here, there is one last power-up block right above the door to the final boss. Get ready, because here we go. Final boss of the game is Captain Syrup and her genie. The genie itself is what we're actively tackling here, however, they're out of reach for the most part, so you need to throw the lamp several times until it eventually lands right side up, in which case it'll generate a cloud. Jump on that cloud to jump on the genie's head, do that I think 5, 6, 7 times, and it's down pretty quickly. The genie will fire out several fireball patterns that you can avoid pretty easily, but when the clouds you're using as platforms do reach the top of the screen, they do turn to mini genies that you then need to jump on to destroy. And you really want to do that quickly, because if you get like 2 or 3 of them on screen at once, it actually gets really hard to get around to their potential attacks. I'd say this is the most complicated boss in the game, but I do think it's easier than, say, the Ghost, because you can easily double tap the boss fight at any point in time to finish it off pretty quickly. And that is game. And upon beating the final boss, you get 300 coins, which is why you can finish up at 9699 for the true ending. So let's think back to the manual for a second. Wario was after that toadstool statue that Mario just took back in order to get his own castle. So now we're using the genie to wish for our own castle. However, this is where all your things throughout the game are tallied up. How many coins you have, how many treasures you have, and how many levels you've beaten. Each of the treasures has a set value, and they add up to your total overall. What you get depends on how much you have saved up. As for the treasures and their cost, Treasure A is worth 9,000, Treasure B is 6,000, Treasure C is 2,000, Treasure D is 7,000, Treasure E is 5,000, Treasure F is 9,000, Treasure G is 5,000, Treasure H is 8,000, Treasure I is 7,000, Treasure J is 3,000, Treasure K is 4,000, Treasure L is 8,000, Treasure M is 4,000, Treasure N is 7,000, and Treasure O is 6,000, owning up to a total of 90k between those alone, which is most of the money you're going to need in order to get the best ending. Once the tallying is done, the coins are going to start counting down. You get money bags depending on the amount of money you've gotten. The amount of money bags you get determines your ending, ultimately. At one money bag, which requires 300 to about 10,071 coins, your castle that you're going to get is a birdhouse, which I think is kind of funny. At 10,072 coins to 40,007 coins, you get 2 money bags, which is a comfy-looking tree trunk house. Between 40,008 coins and 70,007 coins, you get 3 money bags, which is a really cozy-looking log cabin. I actually like to look at that one a lot. Between 70,008 coins and 90,007 coins, you get 4 money bags, which gives you a pagoda. And at 90,008 coins and 99,999 coins, you get 5 money bags, which is the castle, which I believe is the canon ending, ultimately. But if you got 99,999 total coins, all 15 treasures, and cleared all 40 stages, we're going to get the ending we get instead at 6 money bags. On an average playthrough, if I'm not going for every treasure, I generally get probably the 2 or 3 money bag ending. This kind of goes into what I meant to say during Sherbet Land that I think I kind of misspoke about. On an average playthrough, if you don't go for every treasure, you're not likely to get a lot of the higher endings because they really rely on you getting the extra several thousand from any given treasure in order to get stuff done. If you just do the gambling minigames along the way, maybe get a treasure or 2, you're probably going to get at most 1 or 2 money bags here during the final countdown. With that said, get used to hearing this trilling sound for the next minute or so. I just know if I'd actively played this game on a Game Boy when I was really little growing up, my mom would have paid him whenever me or my brother finished the game because she would have just gotten crazy with this sound. She was the type that would often go hear me playing Mega Man and hear the HP sound go up and was like, is a phone ringing up there? She also distinctly hated the battle theme of Final Fantasy XIII because the PS3 used to be in the living room at the time. And whenever I was trying to play that, she would just get sick of hearing the opening of the battle theme because I would get into battles so often. From my memory, I believe the later Wario Lands do their tally-up sequences a little more gracefully than this, but it's been a while since I played Wario Land 2 or beyond at this point. And thus Wario became the man on the moon. Unfortunately, on his way up there, he suffocated and now lies on its surface for eternity. And that's Wario Land. It's cute and really fun. I do think the later games get more of their own identity, but I do honestly kind of prefer the straight-up platforming nature of this one on the whole. If only because it's easier for me to pick up and play. I need to be in a very specific mood to play Wario Land 2 through 4, especially, including Wario World in that. Albeit, that one's sillier in a way that's even harder to pick up. I do think it needed a little more variety here and there, but it's ultimately a pretty short and straight-to-the-point game that's easy to pick up, so it's not that big a deal. If anything, I think the bosses maybe need a little more going on, but at the same time, that's kind of just a trend with a lot of Mario games anyway. Their bosses are usually very quick and easy to take care of. Heck, even just in the Super Mario Land trilogy, as this is sort of the ending of it, just straight up as it was, I think the most in-depth boss fight that we got between these 3 games was probably Wario at the end of Super Mario Land 2 anyway, so If anything, it's pretty consistent with that. I do think it's interesting that this is one of the few times they actively started a new series as a sequel to the old one rather than just starting its own outright. Which is a pretty interesting experiment in its own right. But I think a lot of how you feel about this game is probably going to be dictated on how much you like looking for the treasures in the levels, how much you like the power-ups, even with the lack of variety there are for them, and how much you like the money tallying gimmick. Because if you're not really into searching for money along the way and you only like to get the amounts that you need to beat the levels, the 10 coins to open up a lot of the exits, you're probably not going to enjoy this game too much. And thus, the game that's already kind of bare at points is going to seem even more bare. Also, just to mention it, in the case you're looking at the credits and thinking, wow, those look a little choppy, that's not on me, that's just how they're presented in the game. It's an effect that probably looked better on the original Game Boy screen, but on anything that's not that old thing, it looks really weird and bad. But at the same time, the sprites have a little bit of flickeriness in certain instances anyway, especially if you're moving on something that's already moving, so it's just kind of a consistent problem the game has, it seems. With that said, something that's kind of interesting that you could theoretically do if you wanted to see every ending. You can actually see every ending on a single save file if you play it right. Namely, that involves just beelining it to the final boss, getting the one money bag ending along the way, and then backtracking and grabbing treasures one at a time until you can get enough money individually for each ending along the way. Because this is one of those games that, when you finish the credits, it's just stuck on the congratulations screen until you turn the thing off or reset the system, whatever you want to do. And since the game doesn't save clearing the 40th stage, you can just go back and get the things one at a time until you see them all. Is that worth the time to do so? Maybe not. But at the same time, if you wanted to see them all, it's probably the most efficient way to do so without doing a new playthrough every single time to get less money each time. Instead, increasing the amount of money you have at the end game is probably the most efficient way to do so. In fact, I actually had a thought to do that as the way I would structure this LP, but then I was like, how would I make that make sense at all, editing-wise, so I just decided to play it straight pretty much throughout the entire thing. With that said, I do miss the Wario Land series on the whole. The last two times we got anything from this series on the whole was Wario Master of Disguise on the DS, which is a hit-or-miss game as it is, and Wario Land Shaken. And I think at this point, it's been 16 years since then. On the whole, Wario's been relegated either to Mario spin-offs like the parties and the sports games, or the WarioWare games, which definitely have an audience, and I'm glad people like it, but I just can't get into them nearly as much myself because I'm not as into the micro game comedy aspects of those as others are. They're still fun, just not as much for me as I would enjoy something more like this all the same. Notably, there is one more bit to this ending. About 20 seconds after the music fades, a perfect game text does show up. Though I can see most people missing that because they'll probably turn the console off by that point. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, have a great night, take care, and I'll see you guys next Let's Play, whatever that may be. And in knowing what it is, oh boy, I'm not excited to get to it, but here we go! See you guys then.